equipment trucks going around.
You
so
can
it's
send
not
me
like
an email. We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Do you know Zach?
I don't think we do.
yeah, we've met
you
sometimes
do.
in the
Oh, I'm
past,
Paul.
but it's
Nice to
been a
meet
long
you.
time. Nice to
I
meet you as
do
well.
know that.
Zach Larson.
Oh,
He's on the community affairs side now.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Oh,
joined-
good.
I've
he
kind of
joined the
been
fun
in
group.
and out over the years, different places.
He
but
has
Okay.
the unique talent of speaking technical and community.
Oh,
And I only
I'm
speak
le-
half of that.
I'm learning the community.
I keep asking how old our dog is. Is this, what is this? Are they reopening? Where's the? No, that's beautiful.
Please call me Allie. I handle community affairs for BHP's legacy assets in the United States. That includes, of course, here in Arizona, but also California, New Mexico, and Utah. We have a presentation today to talk about our Solitude project. I'm going to have another team member of mine come up and give about a 25, 30-minute presentation on all the great things that we're doing for this project and all the details. We ask that you please hold your questions until the end. We might answer them along the way. And if we don't, I'm happy to stay here until midnight to answer every single question any one of you has. They might kick us out, I'll be outside answering questions. I just want to take a minute really quick to thank the town of Miami back here, Alexis Rivera, and the city of Globe, Paul and Linda here, for co-hosting this town hall with us. We are so appreciative of the very strong partnership we enjoy with our host communities. We really could not do it without you guys, so thank you. And with no further ado, I'll introduce my colleague. You'll introduce yourself.
Thank you, Ali. Good evening, everyone, and good evening to everyone who's watching us online. My name is Sriram Ananthnarayan. I'm a project manager with the PHP Legacy Assets Group. And I'm going to be, like Ali mentioned, talking through about actually two projects here, and just they're somewhat intertwined while we're doing it, and just kind of go through that. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be amongst yourself, sharing some of the work that we have done, and hoping to have a conversation around why we're doing some of these things and where some of these things are headed. So this is just a normal disclaimer slide. I think this is kind of how I've organized the presentation. So we're going to talk about why we're doing the project, how and what it is that we're going to be embarking upon, and just a summary of the how and the what, and obviously walking through how long we're looking at the construction, and then obviously get into a Q&A. So just BHP, many of you probably know, are familiar with that, but I just, first few slides here, just quickly talking us through what the company stands for. So our mission is really bring people and resources together to make a better world. And how we go about doing it is essentially kind of laid out in our charter values. This might be a little difficult to read there, but essentially those yellow words are kind of what our team stands for. And if you kind of look through those, they're all pretty commonsensical things that you can attach yourselves to. So essentially, being sustainable, having integrity, doing the right thing, respecting each other, and delivering a solid performance for our communities and shareholders, and keeping things simple, and being accountable. And then the company itself has laid out a few things of when we are successful. What I want to point you towards is the third bullet there, the sequence there, right? Our communities, customers, and suppliers value their relationships with us. That's when we are successful. So that order is really important, right? I mean, community is kind of at the forefront, and so that's what the company really stands for. Again, this is a very busy slide. I'm not going to talk to all the details, but PHP is one of the largest mining companies on the planet. So we operate pretty much on most major continents. We have a presence across the globe, and our business is targeted at producing the minerals that really drive our resource-hungry civilization, right? So iron, copper, coal, nickel, and potash. That potash is something that we're going to get into here in the next year or so. So from that vantage point, then, Legacy Assets, which is the team that is represented here. There's quite a few amongst the audience as well that are part of our team. We're spread across the United States and Canada. We manage a lot of the legacy sites that have been going into care and maintenance, closure across both Canada and the United States. So in Arizona specifically, in Globe, Miami, we are managing Solitude, which is what the project we're going to be talking about, Old Dominion, which I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with, Copper Cities, as well as the Miami unit. So these are essentially facilities that the team here in Globe Miami helps manage, advance through various closure objectives, and deliver those key criteria that I discussed earlier for the company so that we can meet and stand behind our commitments. So before I get into why we're doing the project, a little bit of history here. So a lot of you probably seen just the race that's going on to grab some of these future-facing minerals. lithium, cobalt, and other things that are sort of driving this whole electrification prospect that we're heading on. At the same time, and there are folks here from our neighbor Capstone that can also attest to this. Over the last several years, over the last, I would say, 7 to 10 years, the mining industry has been kind of going through a lot of strategic changes in the way we manage our tailings. And that is essentially being driven by some of the large-scale tailings dam failures that have happened in Brazil, in some other places. So this slide essentially kind of some of the main aspects that have driven BHP globally to undertake an assessment of all their tailings dams. And within legacy assets, we own about 50% of the tailings dams across the company. So for us, we've been on a journey over the last 4 or 5 years trying to understand each of our facilities, what do those facilities mean in terms of risks, and how we can kind of stand behind and rectify if anything needs to be done to conform to some of the global industry standards that BHP is a signatory to, and other mining companies as well. So that's really what's triggered this. And now coming on to Solitude. So Solitude is a legacy tailings facility. This essentially, you can kind of see the picture here as a satellite image. And then on the right, you see the historic Miami unit sort of tailings. That's where they were originated from. So all of the tailings that were generated from that historical mining operation ended up getting deposited in Solitude. So that really happened over, roughly a period from 1920s to 1960s. And then, so we ended up, when we acquired this facility, we ended up with this as something that we were trying to understand and develop a closure plan for. So the impoundment itself is what's known as an upstream facility. So they usually, in olden days, you would construct the dam itself of tailings, and it essentially holds back all the mineral waste from processing. So it's a mix of sandy material that has been accumulated there over many, many years. So that's really the context of the facility. Why we're doing a project. So essentially, when you looked at some of the what is known as failure modes for the facility, we kind of stress tested it across various different scenarios. And what we found is under normal conditions, the facility is perfectly safe. But if we had a really major seismic event, and I'm talking a Richter scale 8 or 9, where you're basically having a large-scale catastrophic earthquake, this facility wouldn't be stable. So that's really why we're doing a study, or started doing a study to understand what are our options to essentially make this facility safe and withstand that event. So essentially, when we get into like a technical assessment, so to speak, from a geotechnical engineering standpoint, it's improving the factor of safety. So that's really what we're trying to do here. So that when we studied all the options, what we found was an external buttress, and I'll explain what a buttress is here shortly, is what is seen to be the best solution that provides a rigorous control over this event if it were to materialize. So again, like I said, the objective is to stabilize the embankment, increase our safety factors, and improve the risk profile. So if you look at the picture earlier, you can kind of see, and it's also shown on the walls on the present day scenario, there was a lot of historical erosion that has gone on, from 1960 on to circa 2020s, close to about 60 plus years of erosion. And when we looked at the facility, doing something there to provide the long-term erosional stability, it was another important aspect of the project. So that's really what we're seeking to do. What you see on the screen there with the red boundary is what the boundary limits of what we're trying to, so where we'll be working in. And then what's marked in like the yellow dash area is the fill or the dirt that we'll be getting And this is all property that BHP owns. So we are essentially going to be taking dirt from some of those hills and building a buttress to reinforce the embankment. You'll see there is a spillway that's kind of marked there. That's the green arrow. So that is currently provides a lot of attenuation to that watershed. That is also being studied currently, but we're not yet ready to advance that solution, and that's still looking through it in terms of how we can manage that. So what is a buttress? So think of it as a large scale dirt wall that you're constructing to essentially withstand and support that embankment, so that this material, when it does get liquefied, like if it behaves like a liquid, it can essentially provide an additional factor of safety to withstand that material. So on the screen you see on the left side is an image of a historical tailings facility. This is not Solitude, it's somewhere else within our company. They had an embankment, and then on the right side is after the buttress. You kind of see where they put that black or grayish material to reinforce that embankment. So that's really what we're talking about doing here. Again, another sort of profile view here. The material itself, like I said, it's going to be built out of dirt. It's a helix conglomerate. That's kind of the technical term for the material that is in the area. We're going to use that to build the buttress. And like I said, again, it is going to eliminate that critical failure mode that we have identified exists under those extraordinary sort of seismic scenarios. And this just shows you a drawing of the buttress. You can actually see a better view that's taped up on the walls, and it's the same figure that I'm talking to here as well. So on the top is what the present day is, and then the proposed design is on the bottom part of the screen. So the key thing to note here is that this is modeled on what we call a geomorphic landform. So essentially what that means is it mimics some of the natural environment around us. There's a lot of studies that we did at the University of Arizona and several others to understand how we can come up with something like that, so that we can stabilize the tailings facility, but also provide that robust cover that can withstand erosion from natural weather. Again, this is another view of the area that we're going to be getting the dirt from. So some key pointers here. The project itself is going to generate upwards of about 3 million cubic yards of dirt that we will be using to compact and build a buttress over a roughly 3-year period. And again, like I said, all of this is within our property, but there are a lot of other aspects in the design that are focused, again, going back to our community-focused aspect that I'll be touching on here shortly. The other thing to note here is to build that cover, we do need about 150,000 cubic yards of rock armor that is going to be essentially laid on the cover, and that is going to be imported from a local quarry. And that's important context to keep in mind as I kind of get later in the presentation here. Again, some more renderings you'll see on the left, and that's the same image that's kind of printed out here on the walls and put up. Different views. The thing I'd like to point out here is there's a sediment sort of basin here that you see actually here. That essentially is meant to capture any runoff from the non-contact portions of the landform and settle the solids before it comes out and discharges. Again, that's a couple of different views of how that looks like. And you'll also notice that the area that we are taking the dirt from, we are going to be reclaiming that and using a natural seed mix to allow vegetation to come after the fact, after we're done with the project. I touched on this earlier briefly, but this project has been 4 or 5 years in the making. So we've done a lot of rigorous studies to understand what is the best cover that will perform in these dry climates that we are exposed to. And also, we get these routine monsoon storms. So how does that sort of lay up to those things? So we did several studies. So a lot of them were actual sort of pilot tests at the facility where we looked at a lot of different mixes and what we came up with kind of, again, in cooperation with the University of Arizona and some of the other sort of key landform design consultants in the world. This is kind of what we've come up with. And we've also benchmarked this against other facilities in the Southwest, and we feel like with this design, we're addressing a lot of those critical parameters that needed for success. And this is also modeled on some of the other successful closures that we have had in the area. So Miami Unit tailings, San Manuel heap leach, as well as the San Manuel tailings. So those are all pictures of those facilities. And then here is like a little snippet of how that cover would look like. That 2 feet minimum gillette conglomerate, that is the dirt that I talked about earlier. And then the 1 foot rock armor is what we're importing to be able to sort of overlay that. And then there will be seeding done so that we'll have vegetation there as well. Due diligence and reviews. So if my boss was here, he often likes to joke that this is one of the most reviewed projects within PHP. And he only says that, half jokingly. We've been going through 5, 6, or series of reviews, and these reviews are not limited to external agencies. These are reviews conducted by our own experts that have nothing to do with the project day-to-day work. They come in and look at it. So very rigorous process that has kind of led to it. And then on top of that, we've had multiple international experts review it. One of the things that pretty much any mining company now has to do because of all these failures, tailings dam failures, is they have to go through what's known as an independent tailings review board. And what that is a expert body of people who have 50, 60, or 100 years combined experience doing this, and they got to come in and vet and confirm that what they're doing makes sense and is in abeyance with all the tailings regulations and guidelines. So that's kind of some additional review. We've worked very closely with ADQ, the local environmental regulator, the state mine inspector's office, Gila County, and all the local government bodies have been engaged. We've been kind of having a lot of discussion with the mayors and others, as well as the communities in the area, and I'll touch on some of that later as well. So they've all kind of looked at the approach and they've vetted it. Even though we don't need formal approval from ADQ to do the project, we have presented all the details, and they've agreed that what we're doing makes the best sense. HSE, Ernie's here in the audience. He's part of a very broad HSE team, health, safety, and environment team within BHP that looks at anything that we're doing with a critical lens and confirms that what is shown on paper versus how, when it's delivered, making sure that we're doing it safely. And then the construction itself, there'll be a large BHP presence. We're going to have a construction management firm, WSP Golder, that'll be engaged to ensure that the design intent is met throughout the construction process. Coming to project access, and this is where we will start getting into some of the interfaces between this project and this traffic improvement enabler project that we're going to be doing here. So we did a traffic impact study to understand what is the best way without causing a lot of harm or impact to the community to bring these rock armor trucks. And what we ended up is essentially this highlighted route that is shown on here. We eliminated several other routes because of HSE issues or community-related concerns. And we worked with the Cobra Valley Medical Center to be able to use that access road by a hospital to be able to access the project. So this was backed up by a traffic study that we did last year. to ensure that our project doesn't impact the traffic in the area or cause unnecessary interruptions while we're bringing material in. So when we looked at it, there is a need currently, even setting aside our project. Anybody who's sort of gone to that three-way-ish stop sign next to hospital can acknowledge that it gets a little iffy. People are not sure how to react there. I can already see a lot of smiles here, so everyone's nodding. Yeah. So that it's something that existed. The hospital was trying to come up with a solution, which was a roundabout that they had already sort of penciled in. So when we started talking to them, it made perfect sense to be able to achieve sort of that mutual objective, right? Make sure the hospital can get a dedicated access that helps them get what they need. The community gets a really nice intersection that is safe and is in the best interest of everyone there. And then lastly, for us, for the project, when we're bringing these highway-rated trucks that have rock armor, we can safely navigate them. So that's really the thinking behind it. And again, roundabouts are known very commonly to be able to sort of help people be more safe and alert while they're navigating these intersections. Jim Wright here from Stantec, he's been leading the design team, so he'll be more than happy to chat if there are any questions specifically around why, but that's really why we kind of picked that. And then we've been working very closely with Gila County Hospital and Globe, because those are the key stakeholders there in terms of land ownership and permits and all that. So we've been kind of doing a progressive design workshops, a series of workshops to be able to get them across on this. So this is a rendering of how that roundabout is going to look like. Like I said at the beginning, social value is something that BHP takes very seriously. We want to make sure that when we do something, it contributes positively to the economy, to the people, and the larger community. So it's not just about us trying to find a way to do our project. It's about how do we collectively win. So that's really how that roundabout is going to look like. You'll see there's a monument in the middle. I think it's shown on here. So it's basically the Cobra Valley. For people who have gone there, there's an existing monument. So we're going to be sort of taking a different refinement on that. And be working very closely with hospital to get that in place. So this is kind of the final design that we're advancing. This is another view of it in the night. Looks pretty cool. This is again, Jim's team has helped put this together. It's been really, really neat to kind of see how this all has come through over the last several months. So quick overview of the milestones. I have a couple of slides more, and then I think I'll open up for questions. We're looking at end of May to mobilize the major equipment to do our Buttress project. And then we are looking at probably late May through August to do the roundabout construction. And the key thing to note there is until that roundabout is built, we are not going to bring in any of that rock armor into our property because we feel like we need to have this existing intersection really safe and a dedicated access for the hospital before we do that. And then you might be wondering, during that construction period, how do we access the hospital? So those has all been thought about. We have a dedicated temporary access road that will be part of that design. There'll be some additional literature that will be coming out here shortly to kind of inform people around when and how to navigate those areas. And then the buttress construction, as I mentioned, is going to be around a 3-year window. Quickly, economic impacts from this project. So like I mentioned, we're going to be procuring the rock armor locally. So it's about 150,000 cubic yards of material that we'll be bringing in from a local quarry. The general contractor that we have selected for this job is Skanska, and they're looking at bringing on a lot of the local contractors. So I know 5D is slated to do some of the work, Airly Works, and then trucking, and then there's some miscellaneous other support things that we're also planning on. And then there'll be a lot of supporting staff. So this includes both, like I mentioned, there's a construction management firm that's going to be coming in. We also have other contractors and consultants who will be staying here. And then BHP itself, there's going to be a very expanded presence for BHP. This project is one of the marquee projects within the company because this is one of the top risks the company is trying to eliminate. We expect at least quarterly or more often, a lot of executives, both from Australia and Latin America, coming here, doing reviews, and sort of supporting and spending here because they'll be coming and spending some time to witness the project activities. And then a couple of just pointing out, I think many of you are aware there's some baseline air monitoring stations that we have set up last year. So the objective of this is essentially we've collected data pre-project, and then these monitors will stay alive throughout the project. They'll be sending us alarms if there is a dust issue or anything, so that we can stay on top of it. So these monitors will be live. And then this is the most important slide. If you have any questions or issues, the person to contact is Ali, and she has very graciously agreed to field your calls during construction or at any other time. So, thank you.
That's my cue. Are there any questions off the top of your head? Thank you so much for that.
Did I understand you to say it was gonna be a 3-year project?
Yes, the Buttress construction is going to be a 3-year project. The roundabout, we expect it to be a couple of months. We still haven't finalized the contractor and all those activities, but somewhere in that magnitude.
Any other questions?
What is, can you clarify where Old Dominion Park and Solitude, this project dovetail? I mean,
Do you mean
I was-
as far as our tailings risk mitigation program?
yeah, I mean, so Old Dominion Park has been closed off. I'm just
It's
trying to.
unrelated to Solitude, that's a separate
Yeah.
topic, separate.
So here,
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm curious, I mean, I didn't understand that, so I understand needing to buttress the Solitude. But I was thinking.
So what we're doing as a company worldwide is going through all of our different tailings facilities to do characterization work. What that means is drilling and to see how stable they are across every single separate tailings facility. And so Solitude is way further along than Old Dominion is. So where we're closing Old Dominion right now is to do that characterization and that study work, and then also the drilling for water that Capstone is doing. And so eventually we will come back to this forum and have a town hall just like this to talk about what the solution is for the Old Dominion site. But they're two separate projects, but along the same vein as far as tailings risk mitigation goes. Old Dominion is in the very beginning stages, really mid stages of what Solitude already went through.
You said you're drilling for water?
We're not drilling for water. The Capstone mine is drilling for water.
Capstone, so that's your property.
Yeah.
They're drilling. Have they found any?
We can go at a later date with the community team or exactly like the answer, but it's to supply that Pixel Valley site.
Sure. You guys have been, you've gone way past you had a window that you were gonna take from this time, and you're way past that window, so you have difficulties, you anticipate it going longer?
So my understanding is that there was an issue with drilling. They actually lost the hole and had to kind of start over. In accordance with that, or really at the same time, we as BHP have been doing our own work on the site to determine how stable those tailings facilities are. So there's a lot of heavy equipment on and around the site that we cannot have the public near.
So you're drilling, you're not gonna impact the aquifer that the city of Globe gets their water from, are you? Because how could it be done pretty deep?
So just to clarify a little bit, so they're not drilling for new water, it's the exact same source of water that has been used. So there's no changes in the volume that's been taken or will be taken. So what previously happened was the water that was used from the Old Dominion mine came from the original mine shaft. The condition of that shaft was such that it was causing issues. It was sort of collapsing in on itself. It was being very difficult to be able to maintain the pumping system that was present there. So the drilling that's going on now is
Can he get on the mic?
Zach, you want to come up here?
Yeah, you can repeat the question and repeat the answer so people watching on
Yeah.
Zoom
apologize.
or not Zoom, but YouTube.
Yeah, so as far as repeating the question a bit was around the Old Dominion drilling for water. And the question was specifically around have they found water, what's the purpose, and why is it taking as long as it has? And Allie answered part of that. As far as we understand, the original attempt and the original hole ran into some issues and they actually had to kind of start over drilling that hole. But what is actually going on is we're not recovering new water. This is not like an exploration project to try and find a new source of water. It's the exact same source of water that's been used from the Old Dominion mine for many, many years. Just that what happened was the old water pumping system was in the original mine shaft, and just the condition of that mine shaft, which was drilled in the late 1800s, was degrading to the point where it was being difficult and had a lot of risk in terms of being able to maintain that pumping system in its current location. So the existing drilling program that's going on now creates a safer way to extract the water from the underground mine workings, which is the same source of water and the same volume of water that's been extracted for the last many, many decades.
So, and I think Eric's question was, does this impact the city of Globe's water rights or water table?
No, and so and that goes back to that point. This is no different. So basically, the old pumping system pumped from the underground workings. This new pumping system will also pump from the underground workings. It's just a different location to intercept those underground mine workings.
And which aquifer are you hitting?
So it's not technically an aquifer. It's the residual water that sits inside the old mine tunnels.
Eric, does that help?
Yeah, it just seems like that's it's kind of a convenient. I mean, it's like that water's got to come from somewhere. It's not just convenient sitting there all that time recharging your brain.
Right. So yeah, so that
You guys have
body.
been drilling for a long time, and those shafts that you guys are sinking, that's kind of curious how deep you guys are actually gone.
Yes.
Because I don't think you've actually probably superseded what that mine did back in the 1800s with limited technology.
So.
And if you're drilling, if there's already water there, then why are you purchasing water from the city of Globe? Like, what do you like, 4,000, 8,000, maybe 12,000 gallons you guys are running up there on a daily basis almost?
I'm not familiar with.
I don't believe that we're selling water to BHP.
You got a gauge up there by O'Reilly's. That Dahlman goes to.
So if you're buying metered water out of the.
Yeah, so on occasion, depending on the location of our projects, we will at times purchase small volumes of water for dust suppression for projects. So the water at Old Dominion specifically goes and supports the capstone operation, and that's been the same for many decades. There hasn't been any change in terms of like volume, quantity, or usage. And that mine has had the same volumes of inflows of water into that mine since the beginning of its operation that we have records of all the way back into the 1880s.
So what I hear you saying is a net neutral.
Yeah, basically no change.
Okay. It may not be optimal what was before, but it's not anything better or anything
worse. What was
worse.
before was just that the condition of that pumping system had degraded to the point where we were not able to safely pull pumps out and put them back in to maintain them because of the old original mine shaft.
Yeah. Okay. And okay.
We knew Augie would be the hot topic.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk with you more afterwards if you like.
Sure. That'd be
More
good.
details, sure.
One last question. On your drilling that your rigs that you're using, are you using any kind of specific proprietary materials or are you just standard regular drilling?
Yeah, normal drilling. There's nothing.
So you're not including anything in this water to inject or the high pressure to frac?
No.
Okay.
So the question was, are you doing any injection or high pressure? Just a normal.
This is a normal drilling project. Yeah. It's a large diameter bore, which makes it challenging. The other challenging piece is you're drilling through old mine workings, right? And that presents its own challenges just as far as putting a hole through underground workings that, may not be normal stable rock that you're used to drilling through in other scenarios. But yeah, there's no like unique proprietary, nothing's being injected, there's no fracking going on, anything like that.
I don't know if you can answer this, but so I understand that the reason you're doing all this work is because if we had a level 8, 9 earthquake, the tailings dam would be full. So what does your research percentage.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm all through talking now.
You gotta start over then.
Yeah, how, what did your research come up with in terms of how likely that is? You know, we have 100 years worth of, oops.
You know, as far as the likelihood of having a seismic event,
Yeah,
I don't know, sure.
Was
yeah,
it-
so I think on this slide I put it like it's a 1 in 10,000 year type event. So again, it's not an exact science, right? I mean, just like how we have floods and other things, this is somewhat more of an abstract. The company is very risk averse, and the reason why we're doing it is because even under that unlikely scenario, we don't want to be exposed to that risk. So that's really what we're doing. So I mean, think of it as it's somewhat of a looser analogy, but insurance, right? Everyone goes out and gets insurance according to his or her sort of comfort level. So this is something that the company absolutely thinks is the right thing to do based on what we have, understood.
And to simplify that, this is the earthquake that we've all heard of for many, many years. That California falls off the map, and Arizona has beachfront property. And to clarify, in this type of earthquake, a lot of this infrastructure would go down, roads would crack, right? We want to make a commitment that our tailings facilities will still be standing in that seismic event that nothing else might be. That is our commitment to the community here and everywhere where we operate.
Hopefully that answers your question well enough.
So 1 in 10,000, roughly.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Or no? Is it how many years?
That's
What
it, yeah.
one in one time in
1 in 10,000 years.
years?
That's kind
1 in
of
10,000
yeah.
years. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And
Will you be using Russell Road as an access at all, or
So
mostly by hand?
the question is, for those online, will we be using Russell Road as an access road at all?
So the answer is no. Like I said, we're going to be using B-Sich, and maybe there's a tiny portion there that we're going to use, and maybe I'll flip to the slide there. Yeah. So just, I don't know, this doesn't show up on there, but you can kind of see where a yellow sort of route is. That's kind of where I'll propose to.
And I might add there too, just for clarity, so we do have two main access points into that site. The rock haulage, all of the main heavy equipment haulage will go through Hospital Drive and Bessage Drive.
Yeah.
There, it is likely that you'll see light vehicles like normal trucks, probably not very much more than you see currently entering that Russell Road entrance and exit. So you will see vehicles, not like we're gonna block that off and not use it, but the main haulage will be along Hospital Drive.
Yeah. And one other thing that I didn't add on while I was talking is the construction is only during daylight hours, so it's between 6 and 6, Monday through Friday. So that's kind of what our schedule is.
Any additional questions? Yes. Hi, Thea, how are you?
I'm good, Ally. Several people brought up the Old Dominion, you yourself. It is very interesting. I appreciate hearing a little bit of an update. I had no idea about this collapse. I don't know if you can tell us anything about that. And do we have any guesstimate on when even part of the park might be reopened?
So I'll let you answer about the collapse, and then I'll talk about the real thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dia. So just to be clear, my comment around a collapse is more referred to as the condition of the original A shaft. So that's quite old. It's been there for around 140 years now. And what we were encountering basically was some of the old mine timbers were starting to collapse or tip inward.
No, I was talking about the reference to capstone drilling, and they were making progress, and then that failed or collapsed.
That's what he's referring to.
Oh.
No, he's talking about A-frame.
Yeah, so that's a different story. Yeah, so as far as the drilling, and I can't speak to a lot of the details there. I just know that as far as I understand, it had to restart the hole because what happens is you start drilling through underground workings, and if you hit a void and things like that, your drill bit can get stuck. As far as I understand, they ran into some challenges that made that original hole compromised, and they had to start over. And that's part of why sort of the time frame is longer than we had originally anticipated.
Thank you.
As far as the reopening for the park goes, unfortunately, we do not have a time frame that I can give you for that. I don't want to give you a time frame and have to pull it back again. I can tell you that we try our hardest to open the park for things like Old Dominion Days, and we will try to do that again this year. But unfortunately, this time, given not only the drilling that's going on, but also just our tailings characterization work and what that means for the community and the safety. I don't have a date when that will reopen, but the second I do, I promise you, I will plaster it all over the community, because I know that you guys are very, have a lot of love and history with that site, and we're aware of that, and we're not happy that we have to close it, but safety does come first.
For me to stop asking you questions, can you give me even a rough, is this 50 years from now, maybe? Is this maybe 10 years from now? Is this maybe a couple of years? Will I be cognizant when it reopens?
Something tells me you will be cognizant. I have a feeling. And yeah, we don't have a time frame at this time. I could give you an answer and there wouldn't be anything behind it, and I don't want to do that. I want to be honest and open and transparent with you guys, just like DHP always tries to be. I can tell you the second we have an update, you guys will have it too. Any additional questions?
The roundabout that they're talking about, is that where the hospital round, kind of their three-way, whatever?
Yeah, that little three-way
Now?
stop, yes, that's where the roundabout will be.
Sorry.
Sorry, the question was the location of the roundabout. The roundabout is at that little freeway stop, or will be at that freeway stop, right in front of the hospital, right next to the existing monument. You all have to speak now or forever hold your peace.
Oh, that's not
I've learned.
Just here, the roundabout looks very beautiful, and if you're just talking about pickup trucks and cars doing on that roundabout, no problem. But haul trucks with rocks are really large, so what you're talking about is hauling a lot of rock with a lot of haul trucks on basically a residential roundabout. It looks like that to me.
Yeah, no, that's.
So how is that gonna work?
No, that's a great question. So we have thought this through, and how the roundabout is going to be constructed is in a phased manner. So what you see in the middle there, like this apron, that is essentially in the beginning is during the rock haulage, is going to be a truck apron. So essentially, we are basically aiming for some of those trucks, as you rightly pointed out. Their objective is to get from point A to point B and keep repeating the cycle, right? We want them to be safe, make sure that they're not, using or causing any issues. So from an access standpoint, we have thought that through. That's why there's a dedicated access. Once the haulage is done, we'll then go and basically resurface that, and we're also going to be looking at assessing the road condition after the haulage is done to see what additional steps may be needed to alleviate any issues from the rock haulage. And then on top of that, this is something that we had discussed last week with the City of Globe, is we're looking at putting in a very rigid maintenance schedule so that there is some sweeper trucks and additional things there to make sure there isn't any dust or anything that is on the road during that haulage. I don't know, Jim, is there anything?
Yeah, I just had a couple of things.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
Yep.
Yeah, so my name is Jim Wright. I'm the design engineer for the roundabout, in charge of the big design and overseeing some of the construction on that. So what you're looking at there, you see the asphalt, and Sharon pointed out we refer to it as a truck apron. So there's two different materials in place there traditionally for these roundabouts. The asphalt is, like you mentioned, for your personal occupancy vehicles, your pickup trucks, your cars, and things of that nature, and to keep everybody there. But you're absolutely right. Large 18-wheelers and trucks require a much larger turning radius, and that's what the truck apron's there for. Long term, there's about a 3-inch curb, and that's a concrete material there. The material difference is to kind of separate that, to try to keep the cars on the outside so nobody tries to pass each other in the roundabout. But the trailers of the truck will actually ride up onto that apron as they traverse the roundabout and allow them to do it. This particular one is designed for basically the largest legal trucks that are on the road today, so they will be able to take it at a lower rate of speed. As Sharon mentioned, there's a couple of provisions to try to make that a little bit easier during the Rock College, so they continue moving through there. But we'll make sure that that's in place. The county yard shouldn't be impacted by this either.
Does the Rock College process go all 3 years that the window is, or?
No, so that's currently planned to be around 10 to 12 months after the roundabout is in place.
We also want to build that apron later so that it looks new when it's done and doesn't get, have all the tire tracks from being tracked over constantly throughout the day. So, and the intent is for that to be like a nice stamped concrete and color. This should look like a very nice area when it's all said and done.
All right, any additional questions? Nothing at all? Okay, this is my cell phone number, this is my email. If you guys have any questions, concerns, thoughts, anything at all, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I literally am never not working, so you can just call me. If I'm busy, I'll call you right back. Weekends, anything, we're here to serve the community that hosts us, and we're very thankful that you guys interact with us in the way that you do. So please do not be shy if you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, or anything that might come up for this project, or anything else with the HP. Anything from the city in town? All right. We'll end it. Thank you again to the city of Globe for hosting us in these chambers, and thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.
Turning over the
Okay,
mic.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Linda.